In Myrtle Beach, you always go at your own pace. Lie out on the sand, lie out by the pool, go boogie boarding, go surfing, walk the boardwalk, walk the marsh walk, golf at one of 90 golf courses, mini golf at one of 50 mini golf courses, fish off a pier, fish from a chartered boat, go shopping, get drinks, eat the freshest seafood. The list is exhaustive, but the experience isn't. You can go all out or do nothing at all. How you relax is up to you. There is so much to do and explore, whether you're traveling with friends, family, or just yourself. With 60 miles of beach, you're going to find your place. If this sounds like what you need, then this is where you belong.
Twisted Tea and Myrtle Beach wholesaler Better Brands Incorporated. Know our consumers enjoy relaxing days on the water with Twisted Tea's original hard iced tea in hand. It's important to remember drink and boat responsibly. Choose to be or designate a sober skipper before leaving the dock. Do it for your family and your friends, your passengers, and everyone else on board. Twisted Tea salutes all sober skippers who take the pledge. Cheers, and we'll see you on the water.
Realtree has always had a connection to the fishing industry and the outdoor lifestyle. In 2016, Realtree expanded on the traditional business of creating the world's most effective camouflage patterns to create a fishing brand and family of patterns designed to connect the woods to the water and strengthen the bond between the two worlds. We couldn't be more excited to be working with the industry's top brands, retailers, and anglers to continue our growth, and we hope that you will join us. Enjoy Realtree fishing patterns inshore, offshore, on the lake, or at the dock. Learn more about the extensive line Realtree fishing patterns, apparel, gear, and more at Realtree.com. Trilogy Outdoors.
Welcome back to Trilogy Outdoors, and I tell you what, folks, it's my pleasure to be back in the Trilogy studio this week and sitting with the senator, and we've got a friend here. We're going to have another friend and family member join us via phone here shortly, but some hot topics in the world of fishing right now. Let's talk about that real quick. And we definitely want to share the story for some that may have not heard about it. I don't know if there's anybody. I was surprised that you've heard about it, but the wonderful walleye fishing fiasco up north.
Yeah, so most of you who know me know that I am an anti-social media person.
Exactly.
Although I will say it is important for business, and I'll give you that for sure.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's the way the business is spread nowadays. But I hate that that's the case. Okay?
I do.
I hate that that's the case.
We talked about it on the last podcast.
If you're not in social media and business, you're missing business.
You are missing business.
And truthfully, we need to up our game on social media. But I'll go back to saying I hate it. Okay? I hate it. And there's lots of reasons. We'll get into that. But today, there's a big media fiasco going on.
And I'll tell you, my biggest surprise, and Mike and I were talking earlier, my biggest surprise was to find out now that the story has come out. And again, these gentlemen have won several 100,000 walleye fishing, okay?
Yeah.
They're the premium team in the United States. But I was surprised to find out that they had already failed a previous polygraph in a tournament.
Yeah.
They had possibly turned down doing a polygraph in a tournament, and they had passed a polygraph. But I was really surprised as I talked to Mark Pincus today, the tournament director for the Hook Saltwater Series, all the tournaments that we fish, about it, and the fact that, like, once he finds out that someone has failed a polygraph, they are not allowed in the tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, you should not be allowed. If you failed a polygraph, you've cheated once, you'll cheat again.
Well, right. I mean, you should be disqualified from a tournament when you fail the polygraph, right? The thing is that the appearance of impropriety casts a doubt on a tournament, whether you've cheated or not, right?
Right.
The appearance of impropriety can kill an entire tournament series. And, once you've failed that polygraph and you go and you fish the next tournament, the appearance of impropriety exists. And what does everybody say? That guy's cheating, whether he's cheating or not. And because of that, I don't see how you can survive. I mean, maybe there is some period, right? Maybe it's 5 years or 10 years or whatever. I mean, you know.
I mean, murderers come out of jail, completely changed. So maybe, but
Well, I mean, here's the other thing. If you're prosecuted for it, most of the time it's fraud, right?
and they're being prosecuted.
And so if you're prosecuted for it, you might not be able to fish a tournament.
You might not have your license.
You might not be able to fish
You
a
might
tournament
be
for
in
a while.
jail.
You might be in jail, or you might.
You
not.
might have to rig up some dental floss and fish in the toilet in the jailhouse, see what you can catch. But
So these guys are being prosecuted for fraud.
they are being prosecuted. Yes, they formal charges have now been brought,
And this was the
and
Lake.
they were arrested.
This was the Lake Erie Walleye Tournament Series.
Yes, it's a tournament series. You're right, and it was the championship. And just so everybody knows, what they had done was this. How they got them in there, I don't understand, but they had loaded these fish with leads. And we're not talking like an eighth of an ounce BBs. We're talking
ones.
big egg sinkers.
Yeah.
And
Like 5-6 ounce egg sinkers.
egg sinkers. Yeah, and multiple.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go look at the picture, of the fish, and this was apparently what really set the guy off. Let's give a big round of applause. Big round of applause to where's it at? There it goes. Big round of applause to the gentleman who came forth with the $300 that paid the money to dispute it, and actually, said, I mean, if you saw the pictures, their stomachs, they look deformed.
Well, and the other thing is, from what I understood, when you, I guess it's the same way. When you and I look at a flounder or a redfish, we know within half a pound, right?
How big they are.
How big that fish is. Everybody at this tournament said they're looking at 5 and 6 pound fish, and those fish are weighing 7 and 8 pounds.
Exactly.
Right? So everybody knew. And the other thing was, I watched a little bit of the video. When they announced they were the winners, nobody clapped.
Nope. Not one person.
Nobody clapped.
Nope.
Nobody. I think I even heard a boo.
Yep.
Right. So everybody knew something was going on with these guys from the beginning. And what do you know? They were cheaters.
They were cheaters. And again, I told Mike earlier, like once the guy called him out in the video, you can see it. He calls him out. He says, "You were cheating. I'm holding the fish. I'm not giving them back." Blah blah blah. And the one dude just stands there.
Yeah.
Like, dude, if I'm you,
Getting out of there.
I'm running to the truck. I'm reaching under the seat, and I'm gonna slowly back away out of, or I'm gonna do that exactly. But yeah, I'm slowly driving away and just making sure nobody's coming after me, because I can imagine walleye fishermen being a lot like bass fishermen. But on this lake, apparently right now, all the this is a premium time to go walleye fishing. All the fish are between 4 and 6 pounds. And this is another thing that set it off. They knew the tournament was going to be won by ounces, and they won by like 9 or 10 pounds.
Yeah. That's
But
not right. Yeah.
when they pulled the weight out the fish and they weighed the fish that they actually had the winning weight.
They had won
No.
anyway.
That is the biggest. That's the worst part of the whole deal.
That is. It's
And-
terrible.
And I just got that. Actually, I think I found that in New York Times. And by the way, New York Times is posted about walleye fishermen.
Yeah, it was in the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, everything.
I listened to it. The Spotify's got a Wall Street Journal every morning. They do a little 30-minute podcast. It was on Wall Street Journal this morning.
So you listen to podcasts?
No, it's not really it is a podcast, but it's like a mixture of daily news and music. It's called The Daily Drive on Spotify. It's actually pretty good.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I have not listened to any of our podcasts in a while, but I did listen to our podcast last week, and I loved it, and I knew I would, but because I didn't get to take it all in because I was sitting in here, so I got to sit back and listen to it, and it was great. Yeah. And maybe we didn't talk a lot of fins, fur, and feathers, but I even had several people bring it up to me that, in that exception, they were okay with it. They enjoyed listening to it.
Well, it's different, and it's something that I think it was necessary to be said, right? There were some things in there.
That's the key.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're not always going to talk about fins, fur, and feathers, but most of the time we will. When we don't, it's going to be something that's important, and I enjoyed it. I think it was great. This week, however,
we're going to talk fins, fur, feathers, and fossils. I've been practicing on that.
I was going to say, well, you beat me to it. I was going to say fins from the past.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, that. Okay, so I had to text you today. Obviously, I like to do a little research every time because in case any of you listeners out there don't understand, we have one well-educated person in this group, and we have one idiot redneck from Lake City, South Carolina, who I'm supposed to play the dumb person. I do a good job of it. I'm overqualified, but so I wanted to make sure I did a little research into what we were going to talk about today. And so I wanted to make sure we were talking swimming for these fossils or digging or, we've talked about so many different things. But then when you mentioned your dad, I should have known exactly what we were going to talk about.
Well, speaking of him, so we've got two guests with us today.
Exactly. Introduce our guests, and you can get Mr. Steve on the line.
I will. We have to my right, Mr. Mike Cannon.
Mike, thank you so much.
Give him a clap.
My pleasure.
Oh, yeah, hang on.
There you go. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Mike's from Conway. Friends with my dad. And
I am so sorry.
I am too.
Really?
My pops. And
I've watched him grow up for 40 years.
Who, him? Well, his dad told me, he said, listen, the first time I met Mr. Steve, we went out to the farm, and he was going to burn a little bit of underbrush. That was his deal. And Mr. Steve said, listen, I'm going to tell you the best piece of advice I can give you if you're going to be hanging out with him, and it sounds like y'all going to be hanging out a lot. Keep 911 on your phone ready to go because you're going to need them.
Speed dial.
He said you're going to need them.
All right, our next guest, I'm dialing right now. Stand by.
I got some HOA questions to ask him anyway, so we can get him on the phone.
Hello,
Are you there?
I'm here, son.
We have the elusive, infamous Steve Goldfinch. Give him a clap.
How you doing, Pops?
Or the only guy that's working today. How about that?
Hey, all right, so
This is work.
this is work, but I am just going to say this much. I am completely covered in dirt. I have been working in a yard at my father-in-law's house. He had back surgery, and I've been over there all day. So I've been working too, but not doing that fun work that makes all that money like you've been doing today, though.
Oh, you're the good son-in-law. You're the good son.
You're a good man.
I actually just
You're a
got
good
out of the
man.
shower. I was looking at the new property, which we should talk about at some point in time. Got a new piece of property.
There you go.
Got a new piece of property. We're going to be putting some cameras on it, Mike. We're going to be putting some cameras
Absolutely.
on it, putting some corn piles out, getting it ready.
He don't even know what I got him for Colorado. I mean, only thing he knows is his wife, I'm sure, has told him all about these charges she's seen on the credit card. But he doesn't even know what I got him to take to Colorado. And it's
Please
gonna
don't give him anything
Anything.
else to take
No.
to Colorado.
look here, Mr. Steve. There's some electronics that are going with him to Colorado that I know.
so
This is the
so
hard
sad.
part. We're going to dinner on Thursday night, and I thought about bringing him with me, but dinner is not going to be near enough time to get him educated on how to run these cameras and the audio equipment to go with them. But I'm sending him out there to bring me some good content back since I can't go. So
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait to see that. There are going to be no elk left in Colorado if y'all don't stop helping him.
So
Awful.
the good thing is I have a buddy of mine, Rick, Rick's been on the podcast before.
oh yeah.
Rick is actually going with me.
Oh, good. Well, you can borrow one of his trilogy camouflage hats. He's got a couple.
I need one. Rick is a little more technologically inclined.
Yes, he is.
Than I am, so I'm gonna probably get Rick to run the video stuff.
That's perfect. Rick got me turned on to the remote with the GoPro, setting the GoPro out and using the remote because I have always tried to keep it close to me. But you're going to have all of that. Trust me. You've got remote. You've got wrist remote. You've got your phone. You can run it by. You got plenty.
So the angle, I'm the inventor of the decoy angle.
Yep.
Okay, which was the camera that actually looks at the decoys from an angle, which is what inspired the remote.
It did.
Okay,
And it is where I killed my turkey this year, my one turkey, and I got the best video ever because I took the camera out there and set it
right into the
right into the decoy, and I'm like,
That's how you do it.
no brainer.
It's a new thing. I will take all credit for it. It's a new thing. It's a new angle. Okay, but it's a good angle. It's a good angle, and it is going. Yeah, go ahead.
Captain, can I interpret that Rick is going to run the camera? I mean, we went right past that.
Yes.
Rick is going to run the camera. I'm going to shoot. That's
Yeah.
what Steven is saying.
And
I'll be the shooter.
I felt like that was probably going to be the way it worked.
I always give Rick an opportunity to shoot. Okay. It's usually like on number 2 when I'm saying on 3. I say 1,
Exactly.
2, bang, and then why didn't you shoot? That's the best way to do it. All right.
That is
So today,
honest truth. Thank you, Stephen.
today, I'm going to bring us in. Today, we are joined with Mike and my dad. Well, first of all, let me go back. There's an elephant in the room. We have to address the elephant in the room, okay? The elephant in the room is you two guys are kind of old farts. Okay?
I consider that a good thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey, the alternative is way worse.
y'all are sort of old dudes, and you're diving for fossils in swift black water, sometimes twice a week. I mean, you're getting after it, and regardless of how much I love to pick on you, I'm proud of you for continuing to do it, and it inspires me to continue to do it as I get up into your, the octogenarian ages that you are. It inspires me to continue going. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome.
You're welcome, son, and we still enjoy teaching you the things we can about diving.
Well, seriously, y'all, the two guys.
Seriously.
Yeah,
Seriously.
in all seriousness, the two guys we have on today, even though I may be a little biased, are probably two of the best, Captain E, two of the best fossil divers in probably the Southeast. Honestly, I mean, they dive all the time. They know all the spots. But one of the things that's always been very interesting to me is thinking through how to find these spots. Thinking through, like, what happened, how did the fossils get there? And if you don't know much about South Carolina, first of all, we're not going to tell you these spots, okay? You're going to have to go out and find them for yourself. But I want to tell you sort of how we have come up with some of these spots over the years, what we're looking for, how we're thinking about it. And I don't know, I think my dad, who's on the line, I think he's responsible for thinking through this phosphate angle. And I want you to talk about that a little bit, if you would. How did we come up with this phosphate angle, and why does that work? What do you think?
Now?
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
come on.
Okay.
No, in 30
Well,
minutes.
Yeah, we'll do that after the next break.
You'll be here by then.
So, I mean, we just kept noticing what I thought, and my theory was that we had fossils that were out of place. Now, when someone says, how can a fossil be out of place? In our experience is that you're diving in a fossil bed, which is an exposed section of the, I assume, Cretaceous ridge that's coming up closer to the surface. The river's doing the digging for you. You find an area that's of an ancient seabed that's been exposed by the river, and you have this opportunity to have a 10-foot by 400-foot, 10-foot by 30-foot fossil bed, which contains 250 million years of fossils. And so when someone says, how do you know something doesn't belong? Traditionally, for me, it's 47 years of looking at that bed and trying to figure out the layers in it. And when I say a bed, a bed that's a mix of rocks, fossils, phosphate, and trying to figure out how that process works as it uncovers in layers by the current of the river. And I've come to the conclusion that some of those fossils are being placed there artificially by some of these mining operations that occurred in the lowlands and the low country, during the late 18th century, early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s. And these are mechanically driven steam machines, giant augers that are creating a chemical base for fertilizer in the most basic ways, cleaning these phosphate beds. And these fossils look to me like they have been through a machine, and they look to me like they have been processed and then dumped in an unusual area.
All right, let's back up for just a second because we covered a lot there. So
Yeah.
approximately 1860 or so, we start seeing, and I'm just guesstimating that. It could be 1870, it could be 1850.
69.
Okay,
69.
there you go, 1869. 1869 or so, we start seeing the beginnings of phosphate mining in South Carolina. Okay, phosphate used primarily for fertilizer.
Right.
A lot of the plantation owners, when they were clearing their lands, noticed that once they cleared these rice fields, they hit a white bedrock type substance underneath the rice field, underneath the pluff mud or the mat, the weed mat. And when they crushed it and they combined it with other things, they put it back into the soil, it made the soil more readily productive. Thank you. Productive. All right. So that's how phosphate mining came to be in South Carolina. Now, the thing about it is, at least we believe, and I think what you're getting at, and then I'm going to let you carry on, I just wanted to fill in the holes. When they started mining that phosphate, that layer of white rock, that phosphate, what was underneath that layer of phosphate was the Cretaceous Ridge, which had a bunch of fossils in it, to include the most sought after of the fossils, at least in this area, the megalodon tooth, right? Which the megalodon shark lived 5 to 15 million years ago, something like that.
Wow.
And those fossils belong underneath that phosphate layer. When that phosphate layer is removed, there are the fossils. Now, some of the way that these phosphate mines were done, as he said, there's a dredge which breaks it all up, spits it all out. If they're sucking up fossils and they're widening creeks, they're widening creek beds and river beds, and they're sucking up fossils and they're spitting out the spoilage on one side, they're spitting out fossils too. And so I think what you're getting at is where there was heavy phosphate mining, there should also be fossils, at least in some areas. It doesn't all, the Cretaceous Ridge comes and goes, right? It rises and it falls. Is that correct?
Yes.
So in some rivers you're going to find it, and other rivers you're not going to find it. But where you find phosphate mining is a pretty good place to start looking for fossils, right?
And it, the two fit together because if that is simply an ancient seabed that created that ridge and that phosphate ridge, so you're looking at two items that go together, and if they've been mined in the past, then they were close to the surface and therefore easily accessible. And so when the river does the mining for you, then you have the ability to go into the fossil beds.
So that Cretaceous Ridge you talked about, it's basically just it's not a place in time. It is a place in time, right? It's not a place. It's a place in time that existed, whatever, when the megalodon shark existed, 5 to 15 million years ago. It could go more than that. I don't know. I haven't looked that Cretaceous Ridge up on Google lately, but it's an ancient place in time that exists in a depth of the soil, and it exists pretty much anywhere, right? I mean, it just has to exist everywhere.
Well,
right?
Where they've existed at different periods, and that's the interesting part. Because, for instance, my home in Ainer, South Carolina, is an ancient sand dune from a different period. So when you dig 8 feet down on our farm, there's nothing but pure white sand, and that's because those are ancient sand dunes. But that doesn't coincide with an area where there are fossils because of the makeup that this particular ridge, as it rises and falls and comes up to the surface. We're finding those places where it comes up to the surface under a river. It's got to be all the components at the same time.
Yeah, you're trying to get deep in the earth. In other words, a place without digging, right? Yeah, you're trying to get deep in the earth without having to dig that far down. In some places, it could be 60 feet deep. In some places, it could be 15 feet deep. But you got to get deep enough in the earth where all of those things sort of come together, where the mining may have taken place, or the riverbed either eats itself out because of the current, and it's eaten itself deep enough into the riverbed and into the phosphate where it uncovers fossils. But that's how you find them. That's how you come up with some of these places to find them. Now, what are some of the more spectacular finds that y'all have found? Mike, let's start with you. You recently found a really spectacular tooth, didn't you?
Well, several over the last couple of decades. But,
yeah, sure.
Very nice Angustiden. It was rare to me. I have not seen too many of the bluish gray, complete tooth color. It was that way, and it was fully intact. It had no damage whatsoever.
So Angustiden, also a shark that existed at older
about
than
20 to 35 million.
20
to 35 million, even more rare and even more desirable than a megalodon tooth, especially the big ones. So a very valuable tooth is what he's talking about. And when you get an Angustiden up in the 4-inch plus range, which yours was, they're very valuable. Especially.
All right, very valuable. Let's hear a dollar amount. Or is it a dollar amount, or is it what it's worth to you?
Well, I'd like to answer that for you, okay?
You know what I mean? I'm asking. I feel like I'm asking a good question. Is it the dollar amount?
So I'll answer that for you. The way I answer it for you is this. I was in a shop in Aspen, Colorado a couple years ago, and I saw a tooth about the size of the one on my bookshelf out there.
Right, yeah.
Okay, and it was in good shape. I mean, they had obviously cleaned it and polished it and made it look good. But it was for sale for $100,000.
What?
$100,000. Now,
how about the tooth that I saw?
That's very rare.
Very rare. But only somebody in Aspen, Colorado would pay $100,000 for that tooth. Okay, same tooth on eBay probably goes for $7,000 to $10,000.
Good Lord.
Okay.
Yeah.
Most teeth that you find when we go to the river, me and Mike,
and like all the pictures you sent me from the last time y'all went, those are worth.
When we go to the river, if we find 4 or 5 good megs or Angustidens in a day, and when I mean good ones, I mean the size of your hand. If you find a good one that size, that's whole, that's got it's got all of its enamel on it, you can count on it being worth a couple $1,000s.
Wow.
Yeah. Some of them 500, if they don't have a lot of enamel. Some of them 5,000, but mostly, one of those really good hand-sized megalodons is worth a couple $1,000s.
On the record or off the record, or can you sell them?
Now, good question.
Okay,
and this
I asked that of a lawyer. On the record or off the record, can you sell them?
This would be a good question for our friend Adam King.
Yes,
Dr.
Adam King,
who was on the podcast.
Yep.
What podcast was that, English?
That was a podcast. That was somewhere in the 16 to 18, number 16 to 18. But that is where we did bring up the permits and everything else that you have to have.
So Adam could answer that question for you. So I'll tell you what my gut instinct answer to that is. The gut instinct answer to that is no. You can't sell something from your hobby license. You can't do it commercially with a hobby license. You'd have to go get an intensive survey permit in order to sell commercially. But
you got to give the state their share.
Yeah, but with that said, there are people that sell them all the time.
Right.
They're all over eBay. There are people that are picking up buckets of them. I mean, they're anywhere from offshore. We've got them offshore of South Carolina and North Carolina too, to the rivers, there's even like construction sites in certain parts of the low country where, after a rain, you can pick up a megalodon tooth. And people are selling them everywhere now.
Yeah, I saw the ones that I saw. Remember, we were on family vacation this summer. And I told Stephen we were at one of the caverns up there. I can't remember how to say the name, but we were in one of the caverns outside of Gatlinburg. And when we paid for our tickets at the front counter, I looked to the left, and there were all these megalodon teeth up front. And I started looking at the price, and I was like, wow. And I said, did y'all find those here? He's like, no, actually, these come from South Carolina. And I said, okay, really? So what do you pay for them? He's like, I don't know, but look at the price. And the prices were from $750 to $1,200.
Yeah. We do, we've been trying to go to places in Utah, Moab especially. And there's a fairly famous fossil artifact rock shop right outside of Moab. And even the teeth they have there for sale. And they do have any number of shark's teeth, different species that are for sale. And the ones they'll label them, tell you where they're from, and the majority of them from South
Carolina.
Yeah.
And so your tooth would be worth over $2,000. That gray tooth.
I think it would probably be worth as much as you could probably sell it for.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I have a personal rule that to me it's a treasure that I was lucky enough or fortunate enough to be able to retrieve, and it will remain with the family as long. That's my plan, is to just hand it down, throughout, through time, if you will, because that's where it's been all this time. Is
Yep.
All right. So this is
a great idea.
This is a good place for me to ask you, what's so special about it to you, Mike? Start with Mike.
Yep.
Well, first and foremost, I think to me it's a place. The river is a place of peace for me. When I get to the bottom, the first thing I do is sit on the bottom, turn my light off, just kind of chill for, a few seconds, and then I start, looking. And thanks to your dad, and who got me started in blackwater diving was years ago. We won't talk about that, will we, Steve? It's always a treasure hunt that you always find something. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've ever gone down, spent time, surfaced, and got on a boat and didn't have something in the bag. So it's always new.
Yeah. All right, Pops, your answer.
Yeah, what's yours?
What's special about it?
He took my thunder. The other day, I don't know. Just a few days ago, Mike and I bailed off into a turbulent river, just running hard as it could with current, silt everywhere. And when I got to the bottom and my light reached the sandy part of the bottom and I saw fossils right in front of me, I did exactly the same thing. And he and I have not talked about this, and it's just strange to hear that. I turned off my light, grinned in through my regulator, and said, "Thank God I'm here. This is my place of relaxation. This is the place that I am my true. My feelings are about it is that I'm a treasure hunter. I'm a hunter. I love the stalk. Don't care anything about the kill.
Oh,
I love finding teeth. I love making sure that that I'm down there on the bottom in a cool area where there are no cell phones, and it's just recharges my batteries. That's it.
Love it. Great answer.
Great
from
answer.
Both of you. I'm going to answer as well. There's something special about holding in your hand, picking up and holding in your hand something that has not been seen nor touched by man ever, and has been laying on the bottom there waiting on you to pick it up for the last 10 million years. It's just incredible to me to think about that and the amount of time that is. The human brain really isn't capable of processing that amount of time. We live in 100-year increments, and think about how many 100-year increments 10 million years is. Okay, so 1,000,000 years is a lot. That's 1,000 100-year increments, right?
right.
10 million years. 10 million years is 100,000 human
100
lifetimes. 100,000 human lifetimes. It's just an incredible amount of time that shark's tooth has been laying in the earth, and you're the first person to grab it and pick it up. And many of them almost look like they just came out the mouth of the shark. I mean, they're not white anymore. They've turned fossilized. They're black or gray or tan, but you can still see the ridges on their teeth.
That's the amazing thing.
The serrations,
Yeah.
you can still see the serrations. You can still see the cuspids where they were coming out of the gums. You can
see where they broke a tooth.
You can see where they're broken.
On a whale,
Yep.
eating whale bone,
Yeah.
and the broken teeth was fell out of the shark's mouth because of that injury, and that injury is laid there on that tooth for 10 million years with serrations all around it in perfect condition. So you can actually forensically tell what was in the mouth damage and what was damage done afterwards. And that, to me, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. And, if you don't do it and you've never thought about it, you probably don't care in the least bit. But for those of us that do it and put our hands on those teeth in the bottom of the river, just an amazing experience. And I do the same thing, by the way. I don't know why. I always cut off my light. And I'll tell you why I started doing it. I started doing it because I wanted to know how dark it could actually get. Right? like you can.
Yo, I heard it's so dark you can't. I mean, up down there at
it's
times.
darker than that.
It's darker
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah.
Right. So you think about in your closet at night with the lights cut out, and there's still a little there's a little bit of light from your wristwatch.
Yep.
Or the light from outside the street light leaks up underneath the door. You get even a little bit of light there. In the bottom of a river 50 feet deep, a black river 50 feet deep, you can't see. If you touch the lens on your goggles, on your mask, you can't see your fingernail. Touch the lens on your goggle. You can't see anything. And there's something, I know that sounds very scary to some people, but there's something peaceful about that.
Yeah. It's surreal.
There's something peaceful about it that like nothing else exists except for what's right in front of you at that particular time. Everybody says to me, well, what about the alligators? I don't think about the alligators on the bottom because there's nothing that you can do about it. There's nothing that you can see other than the 2 feet in front of your face with that light. And sometimes not even 2 feet.
Can they see you? Can they see better than you?
I don't.
I'm just wondering.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
They know you're there.
I mean,
They know you're there.
I know what does know you there. Those big channel those big catfish that are down. They know you there.
catfish, and
They'll let you know there.
And when
They
you
will?
see them,
Oh, yeah.
man, it's scary when you see them too. Because, like I said, there's nothing in front of you. There's nothing that matters or exists except for what's in your beam of light.
So how big are they?
And all of a sudden, you see a tail that's about a foot wide swoop through your vision, and you're like, "Holy crap!"
Well, first off, everything underwater is already 25% bigger.
Bigger, yep.
So it's hard to tell, but if something in the dark in the night bumps into you big enough or just large enough to move you,
Yep.
then that's a
big one.
Wow.
It's a big one.
I saw a catfish on top of a van in 1977 at Miss Sullivan's place.
Don't
down
get-
there, and I can.
Don't give
Know
away
what?
don't give away the spot. You almost
Yeah.
you almost said the spot.
And that catfish was most of the length of that van.
Yeah.
It looked like a whale sitting on top of that van. That came out of that river.
I saw one in the wreck. Y'all probably know what wreck I'm talking about in that curve, that old wooden wreck, and where there's a bunch of caves and caverns right near that wreck, and which we can talk about also in a second. But
Where the bricks are?
yeah,
The
well,
bricks are.
yeah. If you take I'm not without giving away, you take
Without giving away.
take a left out of the old landing. You go around a couple curves, and then in the sharp curve after the old Indian bank on the right, there's a wreck. It's a wooden wreck, and it used to have bottles in it. And I reached my hand in the hole to grab a bottle out of that wreck one time, and there was a catfish that had to have been 4 feet long, at least, maybe 5 feet long. His head was so big. Inglis, his head was bigger.
Oh, crazy.
I mean, it was about the size of,
Oh, I can imagine.
I don't know, what is that? Probably two basketballs around. There's some big catfish. I mean, if you hook one, you never get it back.
Can you spearfish for catfish?
Oh, sure, I'm sure you could.
Why don't you ever do that?
The problem is you,
You
can only
can't
see
see
this
'em.
far. You can see this far, so you'd have to have a spear gun about that short, which you'd never penetrate the skull.
Oh, okay.
Right? I mean, you can't get that far away from them.
Here's what is cool about the dark water diving. The water's not dirty, so don't think that black water is black because it's dirty. It's not. And seasonally, it's kind of like the difference in summertime and wintertime. Looking up at the stars. Summertime it's hazy. In the summertime, the water is cloudy with plankton or algae and all the other stuff that's going on. When the winter comes and the water temp starts to drop, which sometimes it's down to a bottom temp of 43 degrees that we've been down there for an hour or so, the water's got that clarity to it.
It's crystal clear.
Yeah, you can see.
But it's black.
It's not 2 feet, but you can see close to 10, maybe even 12.
If you had a light bright enough, you could see, a long ways, but as black as it could be. Do you remember?
Wow.
I don't know if it was Adam King or I don't know who said it. Somebody said it. Maybe it was Walter Edgar Inglis. He said that when the Spanish first arrived in South Carolina and they saw the black rivers, they thought they were enchanted by evil spirits because they'd never seen black rivers before. That's a phenomena that only happens, in the Southeast, evidently.
And ours are from tannin, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are some that are just pitch black. And they make for some good fossil diving.
Explain real quick as you can. Explain tannin. And
it leaches out of leaves and pine straw, and it's an acid that leaches out of organic material.
Right.
So a lot of cypress. Anytime you have a cypress river, it's usually
really bad.
Has a lot of tannins in it. Now, some of these rivers I got into a minute ago. Some of these rivers that we dive in have caves and caverns in them.
I wanted to hear about this because I had no idea.
So especially fast water black rivers that eat into the current gets so strong that it eats into the corners. And when you can usually, when you're on the top riding along and you see in a corner of a river, a curve in a river, and it goes from 40 feet to 64 feet, you can just about guarantee there's a cavern or a cave in the outside of that curve because the current is just eaten into that curve.
Right.
And that's good for fossils. There will be a fossil bed somewhere along the way because it's eaten out of that curve, it's eating into that phosphate layer, and those fossils fall out of the beds. They fall right out of the bank into the beds. So it's great, but it's a scary place to dive.
Oh, I can imagine.
It's fast water. You got caves and caverns everywhere. And, it just so happens to be that you can the way that it works, usually when you're in fast water, you drop down, you sort of just let the current do what it's going to do to you. You can't always fight it. I like to try to crawl up current, and as you're just sort of crawling along the bottom, you'll end up running into the back of one of these caverns. Okay, and then you go up, and you hit your head on the top of one of these caverns. And then you got to start working your way out with your hands, and you can't see anything.
So wait a minute. You're in this cavern because you were diving and you were descending, and now you're in this cavern, and now you got to figure out how to get out of it.
Well, if you can imagine, you cup your hand like this into a C shape.
Right.
That's what the current does to the outer banks.
Yeah.
You'll never see that, from the top. You would never know that exists. But
you're only focused on the 2-foot diameter beam in front of you.
Right, that's all you got in front of you.
As you're sweeping the bottom, you have no idea that you're entering a cave. You're just looking at the 2 feet in front of you.
Till your face plant.
So,
right. So you're just doing this.
Yeah, y'all just took it to a whole different level for me. You lost me there. I was actually
once you get into the cave, you try to come up.
It's a religious experience.
Oh, I bet. I would probably let a lot of non-religious explicits go. The time that I started crawling to go up, and I had to go up and start going backwards, I would start panicking.
The real problem is when you don't know you're in one, you hadn't hit the back yet, and it's time for you to come up, and you come up and you hit your head.
Oh.
And then you start saying the explicitives. Yeah. You're like, I got to get out. Which way do I go to get out of here? Do you go that way or this way or that way? So there's one telltale sign that I've noticed over the years. Mike or Dad, I don't know if y'all have noticed this or not, but one of the telltale signs is if you start seeing, like you're on the surface of the moon a lot of the times on these bottoms of these rivers. I mean, it just looks like surface of the moon, right? What you would imagine the surface of the moon looks like. And then all of a sudden you start seeing like Swiss cheese in the bottom of the river, where you see holes in the bottom of the river. When you start seeing those holes in the bottom of the river, you're in a cave or a cavern, or you're about to be in one.
Or a crevice.
Or 2 foot tall clay balls.
Yeah, those are 6 foot tall, 8 foot tall clay ball. I saw one that was over 6 foot the other day. It was just incredible. It was taller than I was. I stood up to look over it. It was taller than I was. The new place with the birdhouse.
Yeah.
There's a 6 foot tall clay ball there. Thank you for bringing that up. There's little teeny clay balls on the bottom of the river. In fast current, they roll, right?
And they get bigger.
They get just like a snowball, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. At least this is my theory. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you'll run into some of them that are this big. And I ran into one the other day. It was 6 foot tall. It's just a big round clay ball.
Yeah.
But they pick up fossils, by the way. They'll roll in fossil bed, and you'll see them stuck into the side of them sometimes.
And you can see, and the crevices, and not with the caves and the caverns and the crevices, are nothing but just a split in the bottom. But in the bottom of that split is fossils that have fallen down in it. But you're looking at something that the bottom is 40 feet, then the crevice might be another 10 or 15 feet. So, and it's.
I mean, I don't know. You've changed my whole idea of the diving in the river, because honestly, like, that was where I thought maybe the chance to get me, that might be the chance to kind of get me going and try it. But now you completely lost me. First off, I'm scared of tight places. You lose me at that. My mind would be completely on the fact, all I'd be worried about was that I was going to end up in one of those caves.
Yeah, it's an experience for sure. I took my father-in-law.
I did not know that. I thought y'all had visibility. No, never have we.
I mean, you got visibility about that far.
That ain't far enough for me.
Yeah, about a foot. I took my father-in-law, bless his heart. He's he is a good man. He is a really super good dude, okay? But very, very cautious.
Okay.
Did not grow up the way I did.
Right.
Okay. Just to describe him to you, he's the kind of guy that wears 2 life jackets on a boat.
There you go.
All right.
Okay.
So, besides that, my wife would want me to make sure that I give every possible avenue of making him look in a positive light before I say what I'm going to say. Okay.
I've met him before. I thought he was a really nice guy.
Fantastic man.
Exactly.
Fantastic guy.
I agree.
Great father-in-law, great grandfather, very cautious man, okay? Surprised me to death when he said he wanted to try.
He wanted to try it.
Right? I would have never in a million years thought that he would have strapped on scuba gear and gone to the bottom of a black river. But he trusted me for at least 10 minutes to take him to the bottom of the river, okay, to his credit. So I put on a very old BC on him, a very old BC, which wouldn't hold air, and a very old regulator, which I knew would work, but it didn't work well. And I put enough weight on him. I put enough weight that would sink an elephant. Okay, because I was not about to start fighting him up on the top. When he came off the back of the boat, I was going to grab a hold of his back and just take him to the bottom.
Go with him. Yep.
Right. So that was my plan, was to just sink him to the bottom as fast and as hard as I could. And once we just plowed into the bottom, to crawl along the bottom for a few feet and then take him to the top. So the getting to the bottom worked. He went down like a missile, straight to the bottom, plowed into the bottom of the earth at the bottom of the river. No joke, y'all. He puts his hand on a megalodon tooth that was about the size of his hand.
No way.
The guy's never dove in the river. He never dove, period. I mean, his first diving experience, scuba diving experience, was me
in the river.
In that black, fast river. He puts his hand on a tooth, He turns and looks at me, shows it to me. I looked at it. I'm like, oh my gosh. He says, he gives me the motion,
The thumb up.
the thumb up to come up. We were not down there 20 seconds. I blew as much air into his BC as I could to lift him off the bottom, and it's just pouring out the back of the BC because it's torn out. Anyway, I put as much air in my BC as I could and held on to him and pulled him up to the top. He puts that tooth on the back of the boat. He crawls in the back of the boat. He said, I'm done. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I remember him sitting on the front porch of your house in Owendall smiling like a Cheshire cat. He was so proud. And you know what? That event is one of the proudest events that I've ever seen, and that because he overcame every concern he had. Much more powerful than one of us who's not worried about it a bit.
Yeah.
He overcame and did it, and I was really proud of him.
Yeah, I was too. Super, super good guy, but super, super cautious.
That's like me.
And he did the most scary thing that I can imagine people would think would be scary. One of the most scary things.
But that's why the fossils are there.
Really?
It is a scary, scary environment with alligators, bull sharks, and catfish, and crabs that are trying to bite you, and flounder that are scooting out from underneath you.
Evil shrimp.
Evil shrimp.
And the evil shrimp that get inside your vest and your T-shirt stop popping.
God, the shrimp were terrible this year.
Yep.
I have to add, I think y'all agree with this. The one thing about blackwater diving in general, I think, is either you love it or you hate it. There's no middle ground. You don't sit on the boat and go, I think I will, maybe I will. Yeah. No, I don't think I will. It's like you're either in or you're not.
Yep.
And it takes, and if you're claustrophobic, it's the last place on earth you want to be.
Yeah, no doubt. No,
there's no half pregnant in blackwater diving. You either are or you aren't.
Is, that's right.
That's right. And once you hit the bottom, you are, right? I mean, you're part of the club. You've done it.
If somebody wants to learn to do it or wants to get involved, what's the best? I mean, is this something where you can go to, say Scuba Express and
nobody? I don't think anybody teaches you how to blackwater dive.
Okay.
I mean, you can go ahead.
That's hanging on somebody's arm that knows what they're doing.
That's it. Yeah.
That's after you've done ocean dives and after you've gotten comfortable with the whole situation. You do not want to start learning to dive in dark water by yourself with no partner.
Yeah.
Nobody, and nobody to help you in case you get in trouble, because every possibility that can occur in diving, in the dive training, every possibility occurs down there on almost every dive. You have air issues. You can't find your equipment. You have a 4-knot current that's got you upside down at times or tumbling. And you're breathing hard and you're swimming hard. And you're trying to make sure that you keep all the accoutrements that you have hooked to you, include lights and scooters and bags and gear and air and all the things you have. You got to keep all that in place. You do not need to be doing that on your first, second, third dive.
This episode today brought to you by Goldfinch Funeral Home. Make your preparations before your dive.
But I took I'm so proud. I took my 13-year-old grandson on a dive off of Wilmington the other day. And, it's crystal clear, top to bottom visibility on a 75-foot tugboat on the bottom of the ocean. He went inside and he enjoyed it. He saw all the things he's always dreamed about, and his big sister, who was also a diver, has told him about it, and we've shown him pictures of. And he's getting to the point where he's comfortable with close environments, he's comfortable with situations, and at some point we'll make a decision to put him in the river. But he'll be literally holding my hand, and I'm not letting go of it.
Right.
And I can help him if he needs help, if something gets out of place. But the big thing is I can orient him on the bottom to where he actually has spatial awareness of where he is. It's the black that gets you. The river doesn't just not have any light. It soaks up light. It sucks it away. So once we get him on the bottom, get him oriented into a reflective surface like the sand on the bottom of the river, then at that point, I've seen people that have been nervous as cats just forget all that nervousness, and when they start putting fossils in their back, and you realize they're either hunters or they're not, and it's fun to watch that when they turn into those scavengers looking for that stuff. But it's not just teeth. I found the other day a claw for a 9-foot sloth that used to live here. Did you know we had giant sloths that
Nope.
lived here? Yep.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn
Uh-oh.
the armor off of a Volkswagen-size armadillo.
Yeah, I
Did
felt
you know we had Volkswagen-size armadillos walking around here?
No.
and
And it's the history.
and camels. And camels.
And camels.
We had camels that lived here.
North American camels.
Yeah,
We pick up the teeth all the time.
Yeah, we had mastodons, which I found the
Saber-toothed tiger.
Tigers. Yep.
I found the tip of a mastodon tusk 2 years ago, I guess it was.
Where is that? That's a nice tip, Stephen.
It's at my house.
Oh, okay. The ivory.
Yeah, the ivory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things that lived here in the last 50 million years that you wouldn't even know, but
No.
we find the remnants in the bottom of the river. It's pretty cool.
Hey, I'll tell you what, it sounds like it. And you guys, man, I just never give you enough credit for what y'all do. Wow.
All right, anything to close, Mike? With you.
I'm going to do it as long as I can do it.
What's your scariest experience, Mike?
Probably
Happens
get to the
every
bottom
time.
and the current's so bad that you really don't ever get a handle, and you're like a tumbleweed rolling on the bottom, and the best thing for you to do is get to the surface instead of trying to fight it.
Yep.
It's just kind of one of those things. And I thought that probably was the scariest thing, was it just I had absolute no control. Mother Nature had me, and it was time for me to get back to civilization, if you will. And I'm not a young guy anymore, and I'm taking a big enough chance like it is, but I love it, and I'm not going to stop.
Now, you mentioned earlier you've been doing it for 40. How long have you been doing it?
A little over 40 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you dive in saltwater too?
Have.
Okay.
I don't have the opportunity to saltwater dive as much as the senator. However, I have enjoyed it. Yet spearfished and seen a number of the wrecks off the coast, and it's a whole different environment completely.
Right. It sounds like it.
It just, even from the basic diving equipment is different than diving in freshwater, which is the most black waters. It's just all different. So it's.
Y'all have any video? Do you have any video?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Is it private video or is it on YouTube?
Oh, I don't post. I don't do social media either.
Do you have any? Do you know of any? I'd like to look. I told you about my friend from Lake City, Randy McDonald from Florence, that did a lot of that. And I know he had videos at some point in time. I was just trying to think of some video somewhere I could share
I'll send you some videos.
Send me something I can share. Send me something I can share, because we'll share it with this episode, because I'd love to I know you still, even video is not going to give you the complete appearance of how dark it is, but I would just love to see video to get an idea of it, because I don't know, maybe I'm missing that in my mind, but it to me, it just sounds like it's unenjoyable. Sorry.
With the new camera equipment
Right.
that I'm going to be getting.
You're good for 130 foot is all I could get you.
All right.
130 foot
Well,
is the deepest I can get you on the one camera.
We'll make it work. With the new camera equipment, I will get you some video.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that'd even be better.
Sometime in the next couple of weeks. We need to get. Do you have any, Mike or Dad? Do y'all have any good video of you seeing a tooth underwater?
Yes.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, good.
Just tap on it, it'll play.
Yeah, there we go. Mike's giving me one right here.
All right, so you're gonna
see the tooth come right into view.
You're gonna put that up.
Wait, it's not. The video won't play. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Look at that. Wow.
Look at that.
Captain E.
That's
can I ask
crazy. Wow.
I need to ask a question.
Come on, Mr. Steve.
So, Have you ever been flounder fishing? I mean, flounder spear fishing with Steven?
I have
Or have
not.
you ever?
I have not. And once again, it's not because he hasn't invited me.
Right.
I have not been, but I was invited.
Have you ever been megalodon hunting with Steven?
No, sir. But just like
He's always first off the boat, just so you know.
I figured that. I figured he'd also be the one on the bow for spearfishing.
Yep. And so when he comes back after checking out the dive spot for flounder, and he hands you the spear gun, and it's got 6 flounder on it, or whatever the current limit is.
Right. That would figure.
That's how he reports that we're in the right spot.
Right.
He got all the flounder first.
Well,
Same way with megalodons. If Steven takes you, he's going to show you the teeth on the bottom that he's already picked up right in front of you.
Yep. I would.
Really proud that he got
I would not expect anything less out of my senator.
well, somebody's got
There
to.
you go.
Right. Somebody's got to. All right. Pops, closing remarks from you.
Yep.
So proud of the children and the grandchildren. Happy to be there every weekend with them. It's the family piece of it that I love now and the pride, but it is about hunting. It is simply that desire to hunt, find new areas, like Steven said, and to find things that nobody's touched. And then you're holding a 10 million year old megalodon tooth, and laying beside it is a 300-year-old black glass bottle that was thrown over by a sailor who was waiting to pick up rice from the plantations and take it back overseas on their ship. It is a crazy fun excitement every time, and I love it. I'll never give it up.
That's great. That's great. Sounds like it. And now you're going to have some new teammates to help you enjoy it more.
Yeah, we do.
English, wrap us up.
All right.
Great
Well,
episode.
listen, I'll tell you what, pleasure meeting you, Mike, but thank you so much for taking the time out. Mr. Steve, it's always good to talk to you, buddy. I wish you'd have been here in person, but I understand work comes first, and, those HOAs are pretty important. I got to admit, I got that lovely bride of mine as the president over there, unfortunately, in our HOA. And
Oh, no.
oh, yeah. Well,
No.
yes.
Let's don't go there.
Why would you have let her do that?
I'm just going to tell you that she loves Maryland. Do you know the name Maryland? She loves Maryland. That's her.
I do.
That's her
I do know
contact,
that name.
and she loves her. So, but anyway, all right. Let's get together and go shooting or hunting or fishing or something soon, Steve. Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm ready.
All right. Thank you
Got
so.
them out there staked out for you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And, folks, I tell you what, thank you for joining us again in Trilogy Outdoors Podcast. Fins, Fur, and Feathers. You're going to find it right here. But don't forget about all of our other brands. You've got Trilogy Outdoors Magazine, new to the racks. Go check out that Southern English radio show every Saturday morning on the Gator 107.9 and iHeartMedia. And, of course, make sure you click like here and subscribe to the podcast. We love sharing everything with you. And, again, Fins, Fur, and Feathers, Trilogy Outdoors, you're going to find it right here next week. So come back in, tune in with us, and we'll see y'all then. Trilogy Outdoors is produced and edited by Trilogy Outdoors Media. Be sure to follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And also, don't forget our other brands, Southern English Radio Show and Walk 'Em All Outdoor Magazine. To find more information, visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. And remember, if it's anything dealing with fins, fur, and feathers, you're going to find it right here on Trilogy Outdoors.